Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we memorize Trivial Pursuit answers. Because this week we watched the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion.
Written by Peter Harness and Steven Moffat.
Directed by Daniel Netheim.
And aired on October 31st and November 7th, 2015.
Fully prepared podcast. Completely professional.
Yeah, as always.
Yeah. Literally the most professional Doctor Who podcast in
Flashbacks
existence.
to episode 3.
Flashbacks in Trust Your Doctor. Flashbacks into Ghana.
2 weeks ago.
Hey, what was so bad about 2 weeks ago?
We weren't prepared for the intro. For any of the past, maybe 2 or 3, 4 even weeks. I don't know.
You weren't prepared for the intro. All I gotta say is who directed the episode, so...
Hey, all for one, one for all. Dragging you down with me.
I'm not getting too dragged down with you. This podcast goes down, you're going down with it. I'm just gonna be like the captain of the Costa Concordia and ditch 10 minutes into the evac and just be like, yeah, I totally helped with the evacuation. Yep.
Yeah, great reference. I don't even know what that's a reference to. But
when the Costa Concordia crashed in, I think it was 2017, the captain just bailed on the ship. We started the evacuation and then just immediately bailed. And then the Italian Port Authority was like, shouldn't you be on the ship coordinating evacuation? He's like, no, I just wanted to get off in case it sank. And they're like, yeah, that's...
Sounds like my kind of captain.
And then they court-martialed him and I think he went to jail for I think they determined that the crash was his fault, so they sent him to jail for involuntarily not involuntarily,
yeah, quote unquote involuntarily
endangering lives and I don't know if he got charged for manslaughter or not, but yeah, so
all right. Oh.
Yeah, great guy, not. Well, my overall impression of this episode is that it was pretty good. Again, this whole season's just pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. I would say this is the weakest of this season, but yeah, still pretty good.
What would I put as the weakest of this season? That's a good question that I gotta think about. Yeah. I gotta think about that one. I don't know where I'd put any of the 4, I guess, stories we've watched so far. Hard to believe that in 3 weeks we'll be done with this season.
Yeah. Came and went too quickly. It's a good season.
It's okay. Next season's pretty good too, except for that one episode that's the worst episode Steven Moffat's ever written. But anyway. Actually, did Steven Moffat write that episode? I can't remember now.
Well, he wrote this one. He co-wrote the second one and the first one with Peter Harness. And the first one was completely written by Peter Harness, who also wrote the pretty good Kill the Moon.
Yeah, strongly disagree with half of that statement. I can't contest the fact that he wrote Kill the Moon, but I can contest the fact that it was pretty good, which isn't a fact, it's an opinion, so I don't know why I said that I would contest that fact.
There are no facts, only opinions.
I don't know. Things I have a hand, that's a fact, at least to you and me. I guess the podcast...
Oh, that's not a fact to me. But...
I guess the audience wouldn't know. I could just be lying through my teeth. They wouldn't even know if I had a hand or not.
Well, I don't think it's a fact, so, you can make up your own mind. Anyway, this episode starts with some Zygons.
It starts with Once Upon a Time. We had a flashback to an episode over a season ago. That's what I wrote.
Yeah, there's some on-screen text.
Which is...
reminiscent of Series 7.
Reminiscent of a trailer for this season. That's what I thought. It's
done with the fixed width font with it's being typed on screen.
Once upon a time there was 3 doctors, and it picks a pretty good scene for the 3 doctors. They're sitting in the Black Archive when they talk.
Yeah, flashes back to the other standoff in the Black Archive because they kind of do a repeat on that.
What's the first... I don't know. The first scene of the 3 doctors is I don't remember. And then they go 2 Osgoods and they pick the worst possible scene for the 2 Osgoods where the Zygon's can I have my inhaler? And the real life Osgood's
no, that's a pretty good scene, I think. I mean, that's...
I think the scene in the Black Archive
doesn't really explain who they are or what they are. If you know, then it's pretty good.
Great. It's like, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have liked the scene in the Black Archive with the two Osgoods. Like, one of them, like, coughs and asks the other one for the inhaler, and they, like, slyly look at each other. Because I think that would have played more to what this episode is about in regards to Osgood.
That's also like an if you know, you know type thing.
Yeah, but it would have been more coherently related to the Osgoods in this episode.
Well, we've mentioned this before. This season seems really gatekept by, like, prior knowledge. You know, if you're not a big Doctor Who fan, you're probably not going to be too into this season, honestly.
Yeah, don't worry. I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 references in this episode, 2-episode story. Again.
Sick.
I still don't know if it's just because I'm keeping track of it now. I'm noticing all of these, or if it's
no, they're
higher
more.
this season.
They're more, definitely. But also probably, like, you know, if we went back and watched earlier episodes with that in mind, we'd pick up, like, more than we originally saw.
Probably. Maybe we'd even catch some flash forwards.
Yeah. Ghosts.
And then it goes one treaty and then it shows the doctors wiping the Zygons and the not real, like the human, I guess, people's memories. We're going to be doing that again, I guess, in this episode.
What, calling the humans real and the Zygons fake?
Yeah. And then we get a scene where the remaining Osgood is crying. Well, no, actually, we get a flashback to Osgood getting killed by Missy in... I'm pretty sure that happened in
Death in Heaven. Yeah, it did. I forgot about, like, all of this. I thought that Osgood was dying, like, she died in New Mexico or wherever it was supposed to be.
Yeah, because then we see the Zygon get captured in the Osgood, I guess, get captured in New Mexico.
She's a companion now.
Well, I did that intentionally because you can't really call him the Zygon or the human Osgood because she's all cryptic. Like, I'm just Osgood.
Same.
She gets captured in New Mexico, and the Zygons force her to make this, I guess,
terrorist video.
Where she's like, unit's gonna turn over. They're basically gonna reveal the Zygons, or we're gonna, like, declare war on you.
Yeah, because there are 20 million Zygons living on Earth. Most of them are in, you guessed it, the UK. There's actually a video at the beginning where they explain the what was it called,
the treaty.
The treaty, but there was the nightmare scenario or whatever.
Yeah, this video of two Osgoods going, like, if you see this video, then we're going to explain the nightmare scenario to you. Basically what happens is if the Zygons find this Osgood box, that it's the nightmare scenario. You have to wonder why. At this point in the episode, the first time I watched it, I was wondering, like, why is there only one box, like, for the Zygons? The Zygons get the box and they win? Like, that seems kind of unfair. That doesn't seem like a very fair treaty to me.
Well, they made 3 boxes. For some reason, they constructed another box for this video. Maybe it was just, like, the test box.
Well, they made the box for the video to, like, cover up the fact that there's another box.
2 box. Like, the one in the video is not one of the 2.
I mean, it might be. They might have just painted it.
Maybe.
You don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then we get the title sequence. No, we had well, actually, before we get the title sequence, we get a message from Osgood. Right before she gets captured, she sends a text message to the Doctor. Lots of texting in this episode.
And
they
use the iPhone. Well, there's a lot of iPhones in this episode, first of all, and they really, like, focus on,
like, iPhone 5s.
Yeah. Well, that was, like, you know, a newer, you know, model when this came out, but, like, still getting that Apple money, I see.
Except not really, because they, like, cover up all the logos, but...
Well, you hear the, like, the Apple, like, message sound when you send a message.
Is that an Apple proprietary sound?
It's associated with Apple.
Literally, like, Doctor Who's used that alarm tone, like, 3 times in the show so
that
far.
Apple money.
That's it's my alarm. So every time I hear it in the show, it's like, oh, great. Flashbacks.
It was all just a dream, and now you have to watch the episode over again. Kind of like the beginning of episode 2. It was all just a dream, right? Anyway, the Doctor is clued into what's going on.
Yeah, because the text he gets from Osgood just says nightmare scenario. Osgood's typing on her phone and is like making the keyboard noises on her phone, and it's like she's typing really slowly to not be heard. And I'm like, just turn off the keyboard noises. Just like,
yeah, it's not as
just
if
turn off the keyboard noises.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a real like physical thing making the sound. Like it's still gonna make the same sound no matter how fast you type. So
Yeah, that too. Just type it. Just type it. I don't know. I was just like, Osgood, you're smarter than this. Turn off the keyboard noises.
somehow, given the scene, I don't think the noise is what gives her away, though. Honestly, I think that
Yeah,
Zygon
I think she just chose the worst hiding place possible.
She had like 2 seconds, Anyway, the doctor is pretending to be a pedophile in a park.
Really
Great disguise.
Really take onus with that wording and phrasing.
What else is he doing there? I mean, if you were
he's meeting the Zygon High Command.
Yeah, I know what he's doing, but if you were one of the teachers in this scenario and you saw this older gentleman talking to 2 of your children, what's the first thing you're gonna like?
I mean, it's not their children though, because the Zygons don't have like parents. They probably could be those Zygons' grandparents. Like there are a lot of like really innocent explanations for this.
I'm saying like the teachers, like
yeah, the teachers have probably never met these Zygon kids' parents because they don't have parents, obviously, because they're Zygons. So they probably just assume like, oh, that's their grandfather or something. It's not like the kids like run away.
I wouldn't assume that.
Well, you're just perpetuating society. You're just like you're part of the problem.
Good.
There's a lot of innocent explanations for this.
Look, all I'm saying is if I was one of these preschool / like kindergarten teachers in this scenario, I would definitely intervene and ask like who this guy is.
Would you do that if the doctor was a woman?
Don't even, no.
No. So double standards.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I always follow double standards.
Nice.
As much as I can.
Trust your doctor. Giving bad advice since 2013. 14. The genesis of this podcast was in 2013. That's when we came up with it.
Like 3 hours before 2014. Let's just say it again. Why not? We're like, hey, we should watch all of Doctor Who on a podcast.
And here we are. Yes, the doctor talks to these kids and it turns out the Zygon High Command and these other Zygons capture them in the worst smokescreen possible because you can just like see straight through it. You can just totally see the Zygons. Also, I don't know. I started questioning later why these Zygons didn't like just kidnap these kids in full view of everyone because it would have like actually probably sparked the panic that they were trying to spark because it would have been like, shoot, these 2 kids just got kidnapped by freaking aliens.
Yeah, when you really think about it, there are so many better ways that they could have like caused mass terror and panic other than like looking for the box. The box is not the only solution, and it turns out that it was just a giant trap laid by the doctor.
I guess that's why the doctor calls Bonnie a spoiled brat who's just like throwing a temper tantrum later on because like you never really thought this plan through.
Yeah, she doesn't really know what she wants.
Well, also like you just said, it was pretty shit plan.
Well, she actually does try and kind of spark some more fear later on when she takes the video, but we'll get there.
I guess. The doctor goes to this unit safe house afterwards, and he talks with Kate, and he's like, so, what's going on? She's like, oh yeah, because he goes to Kate because he's like, hey, the Zygon High Command just literally got kidnapped right in front of my eyes. And Kate's like, yeah.
So they call in Clara.
Well, the doctor's been trying to reach Clara the whole episode. Yeah. She's been not picking up, which is extremely uncharacteristic of her. I feel like she would pick up a call from the doctor like first thing, just based on her character. But I'm not actually complaining.
Sure, we actually see Clara, at her, I guess, apartment, and she sees this kid who says his parents are missing. So she goes and tries to figure out where they are, but they're actually in their own apartment.
Yeah, but
and then she sees them sort of kidnap their own child type thing.
And she's like, are they
typical
okay?
Just occurrence. Nothing really out of the ordinary here. Nothing to get alarmed about.
What Claude's like, are they okay? And then we cut away to the doctor and Kate watching another terrorist video.
Did you find that cutaway suspicious? Because I didn't.
No. I don't think it's supposed to be suspicious. I think it's supposed to be
inconspicuous. But then coming back and sucker punch you later.
Yeah, I think it's really clever. I think it's really well done, actually. So, yeah, they're watching this terrorist video, and it's the Zygon High Command, and they make them normalize, which I guess turns them back into Zygons, and they just kill them.
Yep.
And the doctor's like, great. Looks like the Zygon High Command on the Earth just got vaporized.
So Jacques, or whatever her name is back.
Pretty sure it's Jack.
Jack from the Witches, from, what was it called? The Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar. She's back.
Pretty sure just the Magician's Apprentice.
But not for long. And it turns out that UNIT has some intel on some Zygon bases. So there's one in Turkmenistan, not a real country.
Yeah, well, Clara shows up.
They also need to go investigate Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, because that's the hint that the Zygons had been dropping in all their videos.
Yeah, there will be truth or consequences. And Clara showed up by this time, and she's like, oh yeah, that's a town in New Mexico. Was renamed after a game show.
She memorized 80s. That from Trivial Pursuit, the board game.
She must have. I know after this episode aired, I went online. I was like, that's kind of weird. I wonder if it's true. And I Googled it, and it is true. It is actually a town in New Mexico named Truth or Consequences that was renamed for a game show.
Would be a really weird thing to drop in the episode if it wasn't a real life thing.
I don't know. Like I said before recording, could have just been something that was true in the Doctor Who universe and not in ours.
Could have, but would have also been a really weird scenario to just drop in hey, I memorized this Trivial Pursuit question. They renamed it because of a game show. Just weird backstory.
I remember when I looked it up, apparently they renamed it because their popularity in tourism was fading and they wanted to raise their tourism profile.
Nice.
Can't imagine that was the best way to go about doing that.
So when people Google Truth or Consequences, they're just hey, man, I should go on vacation in New Mexico. There's actually a lot of the hotels and just places near Disneyland list their address as Los Angeles because people recognize LA, but not Anaheim, California. So yeah,
that's kind of weird. This the fact that this is going to New Mexico made me think of this other thing, which is that every time Doctor Who goes to America, it's either the middle of the desert or New York. It's never anything else. It's never Yosemite. We never get Miami, San Francisco, Los Angeles. There's so many other places they could go in the United States, but it's always the freaking desert or New York.
I guess, I don't know, maybe I don't know about New York, but maybe the desert is just an exotic location for British people because they don't have their own desert.
And San Francisco's not exotic.
No, but I mean
Miami.
No, I mean those are cities, and they have, obviously they're different than London or
Yosemite,
or whatever.
Mountain ranges.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying the desert is probably the most exotic and foreign landscape that's in the U.S. that isn't in Britain, other than Hawaii, tropical rainforests or the glaciers of Alaska type thing.
Yeah, so why didn't they do that? Hawaii, Alaska. It's always the desert. It's always the desert. Literally not even the last time we'll go to America this season, and also not the last time we'll go to a desert in America this season.
Well, I'm just hoping for more bad American accents. Because there was a sufficient amount in this episode, including from the Doctor.
I think that was intentional, though.
Well, he was trying to be a game show. Another weird game show connection. Host guy. His wasn't honestly that bad.
Also, what about the potato fields of Idaho? That's a location they don't have in
the factory farms of America.
Factory
farms. When we go there, Doctor Who? Come on.
Yeah, we've seen Victorian industrial factories. What about
Detroit?
Detroit. Flint, Michigan.
God, when is Doctor Who going to explore the inadequate health, all the health violations of Flint, Michigan?
When is Doctor Who going to tackle the failing healthcare system of America? So, moving swiftly along, the Doctor, they split up.
Yeah, they go to these 3 locations.
The Doctor gets sent to Turkmenistan, They say Turkmenistan, but I don't know. I don't
thought
know where
they
this
said
is.
Turkmenistan. You know what? There's like 190 something countries in the world.
198,
and
I think.
something like that. And like if you're an English speaker, you pronounce almost all those incorrectly or say a name that's not their native name. So I wouldn't get too hung up about it.
Well, also it's a fictional country, so maybe Turkmenistan is
that-
like its real name.
That's also the thing of like this fictional country. Like, why? I don't have an answer to that.
It looks like it's stuck in the Middle Ages because there's a big castle and like a little village surrounding it. This is another thing that's like you have to wonder how great Barney's plan is here, because instead of just like capturing the Doctor and Kate in London, where she needs both of them later on, she sends Kate to America and the Doctor to Turkmenistan to get captured to be brought back to England.
Yeah, I mean I think that's the whole like thing of all of this, is that none of this was entirely thought through. There's also some stuff in here about like, information manipulation and stuff like that, which we'll get to. I want to talk about that when we get to the end of all this.
So the Doctor meets up with... Well, so there's this person doing this drone strike on this town.
These are people from UNIT, we should mention. It's not just some random like...
Some random person with a drone. And she's getting ready to fire the missile, but then the Zygons inside the house turn into her family. She can't do it.
Yeah, she's... yeah. And in another like more on the ground scene, they kind of do this again. There's some UNIT soldiers who are who have this church surrounded, but the Zygons from within come out, transformed into their family members, and the commander is trying to get them to shoot or just not fall for the trick, but they do. They fall for it.
Then they all get killed.
Yep.
You're like, wow, should have listened to the commander. Should have been a cold-hearted, non-thinking machine and just killed your own parents.
Yeah. Some more. That's what I took. That's what I got from this story. Anyway, Osgood is also in this town. She's locked in a basement.
She's the captive there.
Yeah. The Doctor finds her. We also cut to, meanwhile, Kate is in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
It's just deserted.
Yeah, there's one cop there. She sort of liaises with this cop to figure out what's going on, and that's all we really get at this point.
There's a whole bunch of signs that say, like, no British, and Kate's like, that's good. That's good. Because I guess all the Zygons...
not too out of the ordinary. Pretty much all places here, have those signs. No, just kidding.
Well, I think the sheriff mentions that the Zygons all came over all British, so...
Yeah, no, that's...
They all just associated the British with being aliens. Wow, a little on the nose there, Peter Harness, but...
There's definitely a lot of on-the-nose, like, immigrant-related, stuff in this episode. Mostly also, or in this story, mostly the second episode. But meanwhile, Clara has gone back to her apartment with Jack, and they see the parents from before inconspicuously dragging a body bag into the elevator.
And they're like, that's kind of weird.
They're talking, they're like, better get this in before anyone sees it.
They're like, that's kind of weird. So they get in the elevator, and there's like goo coming out of the control panel. So Clara opens it.
Yeah, and having just watched the Men in Black trilogy, I was like, they're
aliens.
Well, they're aliens, but they're on the ceiling of the elevator, like 99% sure. Like, that's what's going to happen, but no, it didn't, unfortunately.
Wouldn't be a Men in Black movie without an alien hiding on the ceiling. That actually only happened in the first one. I don't know why I'm saying that. But then,
they find a Zygon, like, encampment underneath the building. And then for, like, one of the smartest moves ever in all of Doctor Who history, they're like, we need to regroup and, like, get some more personnel. We can't go in here alone.
So they do. They go back to the unit HQ. Jack's like, I did some research. Turns out there's weird stuff in elevators, like, all across London. I think I found the biggest one, like, right underneath the Tower of London. Like, can you believe it? It's right here. And Clara's like, wow, that's weird. Let's go investigate. So they go and investigate.
And it is a Zygon encampment. It was just like random like counterfeiters operating underneath. No.
Counterfeiting British pounds.
No, it's the Zygons. They have their sort of nest. Clara looks into one of the pods and sees her own face.
She does something that reminded me a lot of Missy, where she's like, uh-oh, that's me. Uh-oh.
It's a me.
It's a me, a Clara.
And then Jack realizes what's going on in a very horrifying scene.
Because Clara's like, they're growing duplicates, and then Jack's like, that's not how the Zygons work. They like capture you and then duplicate you. She's like, wait, that means that's the real Clara in there. And then Bonnie's like, haha, kill the traitors.
Gotcha, yeah, so I thought they were going for something even more horrifying and more like, even in line with this whole like Zygons and humans, same thing type thing, which is that, I thought the Jack and Clara were going to realize that they were Zygons and they just thought they were humans the entire time.
That'd
Would
be
have been
very
confusing, kind of like the what were they? The Flesh from Flesh and Bone and whatever the other one was.
Flesh and Bone.
Flesh and
I think you're thinking of the Almost People.
No, the one with the what were they called?
Yeah, the Almost People.
No, they weren't called.
They were called the Rebel Flesh or whatever, but the name of the story was the Almost
was it
People.
Rebel Flesh? No, they had
Rebel Flesh and the Almost
the
People.
The Gangers or something like that.
Yeah, the Gangers.
Yeah,
That's
Gangers.
the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People.
Oh yeah,
Blood
right, that.
Blood and Bone wasn't an episode, but Blood and Stone was the Weeping Angels one.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like always, I can't remember any Doctor Who episode names. So.
Can the Zygons procreate with the humans? I'm having questions about the intelligence of dropping 20 million Zygons into the human ecosystem. Yeah, so then they have a captive Zygon on the airplane because the Doctor's flying back to the UK.
Yeah, the Doctor and Osgood fly back, but Zygon Clara, a.k.a. Bonnie, a.k.a. Zygella.
Yeah, her name's Zygella.
Is about to shoot down the plane.
The Doctor's like, yeah, right. And he calls Clara and he's like, Clara, everyone's a Zygon. Better get out. And Bonnie's like, Clara's dead. Kate Stewart is dead. And you'll be dead soon, too. She fires a rocket. Yeah, and we hear it explode off screen, and then we get it to be continued.
Yeah, because it turns out the cop from the town in New Mexico is also a Zygon.
Yeah.
The next episode, Clara wakes up in her bed, and it was all just a dream.
You wish.
No, why? I wouldn't wish that. Why would I wish that this entire thing was just a dream?
Just undo the entire episode. What if the final episode of Doctor Who, if this happens, I will consider Doctor Who the greatest thing ever made. The final episode is just the first Doctor.
Susan waking up, it's like, that was freaking weird.
So Susan just wakes up in her classroom. Barbara's teaching. She's like, Susan, wake up. Susan wakes up and is like, wow, that was kind of weird, and it just ends.
Really weird how Susan, was not the main character of her own dream for most of the dream.
Even better is
is that even possible in a dream for you to just write yourself out of the dream?
Just be an NPC. Well, it'd be even better as the Doctor. We just cut to that barn from Listen. This is the first Doctor, and the little boy, and he just wakes up and he's like, "Wow, that was weird." He just goes and has breakfast, and the final episode of Doctor Who is just him sitting at a table in real time eating breakfast, puts it away, brushing his teeth, and he's like, "All right, I'm off to Time Lord Academy, Mom, Dad," and just ends.
Well, that would actually be amazing, seeing the Doctor's parents. That would actually be mind-blowing. You think of it, the Doctor is actually a person. You just think of him as this entity at this point, but no, he's a person.
And will cost The
Rock.
No, The Rock's the Doctor at this point. Yeah. Will cost Vin Diesel
as young Doctor. Doctor wakes up in the barn. It's freaking Vin Diesel.
Cost Betty White as the Doctor's mom. And I think about the Doctor's dad for a bit here.
Who's the most aged, on their deathbed?
William Russell. Just cost William Russell. Now that would be a mind-blowing revelation.
Oh, God. BBC, if you're listening.
Give you that idea for free. Chris Chibnall, call me.
No, I don't think... I don't think the BBC is like as scummy as Disney, just stealing people's ideas. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just not as well publicized.
Every movie company does that.
Doesn't make it right.
No. Didn't say it did.
Anyway, it's not just a dream. Clara's actually in like the Zygon Matrix. But she can kind of control her body still.
She's fighting back. That's why the first missile misses the airplane. And the doctor's like, anti-air missiles, great. And then the second missile, Bonnie takes over and just shoots the airplane down. And like, I guess the doctor died anyway.
Yeah, I guess they're all dead.
But then we see Clara kind of rewind the footage, and she sees two parachutes fly out. So we see the next couple minutes basically just follow the doctor and Osgood Osgood's like, you know, she did the right thing. And the doctor's like, what? And she's like, yeah, if I wanted to take you down, I'd just like immediately kill you. I wouldn't even let you start talking. I just put like 12 bullets straight in the middle of your head. The doctor's like, wow, thanks. Osgood's like, yeah, I really thought this through. The doctor's like, wow, thanks.
Turns out also that the sonic shades have browser capabilities on them.
Yeah, and the doctor's been looking up some sketchy stuff. He tells Osgood not to look at his browser history, but Osgood does it anyway.
Kind of like how this podcast has made me look up some sketchy stuff for the notes. Like all those times I had to look up like grenades and like Gatling guns and just weapons and like I'll just open a private window for these.
Well, I know I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but you can always just look up their websites like ruinmyinternethistory.com.
No.
That just Google searches a whole bunch of great stuff for you, like how to join ISIS and terrorist cells in a local area. And also the Anarchist's Cookbook, which will definitely get you on a watch list if you try to like find a PDF of it.
I'm probably already on watch lists. Like, not even kidding. Like, I probably already am.
Just Google, it's just for my podcast, FBI man. Then paste a link to your podcast in the Google search window so the FBI man can look it up. Google's going to start previewing podcast episodes like in the search results, so I really hope Trust Your Doctor gets that. For all the two people Googling like, Trust Your Doctor.
As awful as that is, or as awful as like the trend of Google like being a search engine that tries to keep you on its results pages is, like, yeah, really hope that happens so we get more visibility.
So the Doctor and Osgood walk through this town, I guess, in the UK. I guess they made it across the ocean before getting shot down.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Would have sucked if they just like landed in France or something.
Again, you have to really think about how poorly thought through this plan is, because it would have been way better for Bonnie to just like put 12 bullets through the middle of the Doctor's skull.
They didn't even need to involve the Doctor in any way.
She did later on because she needed to know which box did what and what button does what.
That entire plan could have just been, like, the goal of their plan could have just been achieved in other ways.
Well, yeah, but she wants to use the box.
Yeah, which is her main goal this episode. She's trying to find out where it is, and she realizes that Clara, whose mind she's linked to, knows.
Yeah, because what happens is Clara is able to take control of Bonnie enough to send a text message to the Doctor that says, I'm awake. And then Osgood's the one who's like, she could be awake, like in the Zygon pod. And the Doctor's like, yeah, I guess. And he calls Bonnie, and she's like blinking at him. Winking, sorry. This just reminded me of that, I don't know if you've seen this. It's this video of a POW from, I think, the Vietnam War. Maybe it was the Korean War. And it's this POW, and they basically filmed this American to, like, send this footage to American, like, yeah, he's being treated really well. And, like, they're, like, feeding him and he's drinking, but his eyes, he's, like, blinking out SOS. No, he's blinking out the word torture in Morse code with his eyes. And that was, like, how the Americans found out that they were torturing their POWs over there. It's because this guy was, like, blinking out torture in Morse code.
Torchwood. He just, like, spoils some Doctor Who episodes.
That's...
Turns out I stopped watching after Patrick...
I'll see if I can find the video. I know it's been posted many times on YouTube now.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, It's also kind of scary to think that somebody watching that video in the U.S. government might have just totally missed that if like didn't know Morse code at all. It's like kind of lucky for the guy that some guy watched it. He's like, hey, his eyes are like blinking in a weird pattern, and then like, ah, shoot, he's blinking out the word torture.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd even if you don't know Morse code, you'd probably realize that probably realize the unnatural blinking.
I mean, he must have done it subtly enough that whoever had him captured like didn't notice it when they sent the video out.
I guess.
But yeah, Clara's inside Barney winking at the doctor, and then he tells Barney like he tells Clara, definitely don't tell her where the box is. Definitely don't tell her what it does. And Osgood's like, I don't get it. Barney could have totally heard you, and the doctor's like, yep, yes, she could have. And Osgood doesn't seem to have gotten it yet that that's what the doctor wanted.
Yeah, there's some more scenes here. I kind of forgot what happens until they get to the Black Archive, which is like the bulk of what's kind of going on.
Well,
here.
Barney kind of interrogates Clara because Clara's like, oh, you can't access my memories, can you? And she's like, yep, I guess not. And Clara's like, well, you just have to kill me then. Barney's like, yeah, okay, I will. Clara's like, okay, good, do it. And Barney's like, you're calling my bluff. And Clara's like, yep, because you need me alive if you need the memory.
Yeah, but what's really cool is that she has sort of like mind reading capabilities based on like the pulse. So like she's measuring Clara's pulse to see if she's like lying or not, type thing.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure that's been debunked. Like I'm pretty sure people, or at least I think it's easy to beat. Pretty sure there are people who like artificially lower their pulse and they can just lie through this test.
Clara's been trained, and maybe she has. It seems like she's pretty friendly with UNIT.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a cool scene regardless. I really liked it. Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Yeah, but on one hand, yeah, it's really cool, but on the other hand, Clara, like, I guess completely forgets her, like, bargaining power in this situation because Barney's like, I know when you're lying, so you can't lie to me when I answer these questions. So if you lie, I'll just kill you. But immediately 5 seconds before that, Clara was like, if you kill me, you'll never get the information. So, like, why would you kill me? You can't kill me. So it kind of seems that Clara, like, immediately forgets that as soon as Barney's like, but I can know when you're lying. Like, okay, cool, you know when I'm lying, but that still doesn't change the fact that if you kill me, you'll never get the information. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's what's going on here in this scene.
Yeah, I just find it kind of weird that Clara, like, completely forgets all her bargaining power just the instant that Barney's like, I can know when you're lying.
Maybe she's in on it, who knows? I don't know. Like the whole plan.
Maybe she just knows what the doctor's doing.
I think she probably does.
Probably. She's putting up a front, pretending it's really difficult for her to tell Barney everything, but actually, in actuality...
Yeah, the more now that you say that, I think that's what's going on.
Probably. But then apparently Clara has access to the Black Archive, and I wrote down a note like, lol, why would Clara, of all people, have access to the Black Archive? Like, they erase... The Black Archive erases all the memories of the people who they take there.
Except Clara.
Except Clara, apparently, because I guess she's so special. She doesn't mention Kate as having access, which is interesting, even though I would assume Kate does. Yeah.
But we don't know, like, I think they erase... Do they erase Kate's memories? I mean, they do in this episode, but that's just, for the episode.
No, because she's the one who knows that they erase everybody else's memories.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She's the one who explains that the guy's been on, like, his first day at work for, like, the past 10 years or whatever.
Yeah, and that, like, really dark scene.
Kate's still alive, by the way. He thought she was dead again.
She could be a Zygon. She comes back and she's acting like a Zygon because Bonnie's like, okay, go get the doctor and bring him because we need him. She tells him to go clone the doctor and then kill him. And Kate's like, okay. And then they get there. And then right at the time Bonnie gets to the Black Archive and there's actually 2 Osgood boxes. Because what actually happens is Bonnie thinks the Osgood box is in the unit safe house that we saw earlier in the safe. And she opens the safe and it's just
a laptop with a video on it.
It's an entire laptop just for this one video. This like 2-minute video. And they're like, yeah, if you open the safe, we told you the combination, but surprise, the Osgood box isn't here. We punked you.
Ashton Kutcher jumps out.
Pranked. Steve-O pops out. He's like, we're going to do a prank today. Wow. We're going to prank Bonnie. And then Bonnie like smashes the computer because she's upset. And also Osgood's like, have you figured out why it's called an Osgood box yet? Don't worry, you will soon. And then Bonnie gets to the
the boxes have a fourth Doctor scarf around them. That's why it's called
Great.
the Osgood box. We didn't mention that Osgood is actually in a Seventh Doctor sweater.
Well, one of them is in the video, but the Osgood in the episode is actually wearing the Brigadier's outfit the Brigadier's sweater from Battlefield.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's one of the references I wrote down.
Wow.
And Osgood gets to the Black Archive and she's like, there's 2 boxes, what the hell? And she tells Kate, don't kill the Doctor because we need him alive because we need to know which box does what I want.
This is where stuff gets complicated.
She threatens to kill Clara and the Doctor's like, the blue box is the one you want. She opens the box, there's 2 buttons. She's like, which button? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah, so there's 2 buttons in each box. One of the boxes, let me see if I have this straight. One of them has like a 50% chance of revealing the Zygons and a 50% chance of
permanently
killing all the Zygons or something?
No. The blue box has a 50%. One of the buttons.
This is complex as hell. Like,
it's not really. One of the buttons reveals all the Zygons.
Going on.
One of the buttons reveals all the Zygons, which is what Bonnie wants. The other one makes it so they can never transform into Zygons again. They have to stay in their human form. The red box, one of them kills all the Zygons, and one of them detonates a nuke underneath the Tower of London.
Yeah, as soon as they revealed this, I was like, bullshit. Like, this is so complicated, I don't even care.
Safeguards upon safeguards. 2 boxes with 2 buttons.
Yeah, this is something that works better, or would have worked better if this was like written, or if it was a book. Because then you could go back and like actually check what the buttons do instead of rewinding.
You can go back.
But it's annoying as hell to rewind it every time.
Yeah, not any more annoying than flipping a couple pages back and then looking for the place where they mention what happened.
Actually, much more annoying than that. But anyway, regardless. The Doctor shows up, has like a 5-minute rant. I've seen this rant like... people really like this scene.
I really like it.
I think it's really, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here.
It's really well delivered, and I think they made a really interesting creative choice to put no music behind the whole thing except in the very end when he gotchas Bonnie.
Yeah, I noted the music here as well because the music is at the end. It sounds like very uplifting, but there's some points where it sounds like it could get sinister at any point,
Yeah. But basically the Doctor comes in and Kate goes to the red box like, which button kills all the Zygons, Doctor? And the Doctor's like, step right up, fingers on buzzers, who's going to be quickest, who's going to be first, who's going to get what they want? And Kate's like, it's not a game. And the Doctor's like, you're right, Kate, it's not a game.
Yeah, so he really rails into them for treating it like a game.
He basically says that this is a scale model of war.
Yeah, he says, wars are, fought, but then at the end of wars, people sit down and talk, which they could have just done at the beginning.
Yeah, which is a good point. He's like,
yeah,
when you
I have some stuff to say about
you
this.
push that first button, you don't know who's going to die. And a whole bunch of people are going to die. People's hearts are going to be broken. And then at the end of it, you're going to do what? You're going to sit down and talk like you should have just done from the beginning.
Yeah. So, really making you think, the first person to pull that trigger is probably killing people on their own side by, doing that or whatever.
Well, they are. They're killing people on the other side, too. There's an element here of this was like a really big fear in the 80s, but still is kind of a big fear that
it's back. I know what you're going to say, and it's back.
Like, you just drop nukes and it's completely impersonal, and also drones, just like how killing has become really impersonal, and because of that, in many ways, easier to do, which is why there was that proposal, which, as insane as it sounds, would have, resolved this in the 80s to have to basically embed the nuclear launch codes in a person and require the president to have to kill them with a gun to get the codes out. Basically making an impersonal choice personal, because now you have to directly kill this person in order to launch the nukes. But on the other hand, that
it's a really bad plan for 20 different reasons.
One of which is if the Russians didn't do that and the Russians decided to launch nukes and the president's just well, I really just don't want to kill this person with my own hands, and I just
So they all just go home.
Well, Kate first closes the box. She's like, I'm
Kate's
sorry.
the first
She
one to back
apologizes.
down.
Kate is not a Zygon, by the way. I don't think we actually mentioned that it's the real Kate, and she just kills the 2 Zygons with her in a
Yeah,
like
5 pounds rapid.
like a reverse plot twist of the first episode.
Well, this is also a reference back, I think, to Doctor Who and the Silurians,
Yeah,
with the brig killing all the Silurians after they like surrendered or whatever.
except these Zygons didn't really surrender.
No,
They
this
just
is. I mean,
had a
this time it's
captive.
the reverse of that, right? Kate steps down.
Yeah.
The Doctor talks about the cycle of violence as well, which is, what that episode is also about.
The Brigadier just perpetuating the cycle.
Yep.
The Doctor tells Bonnie that he forgives her for everything. He's like, here's the thing you're not going to expect. I forgive you. She's like, why? He's like, because I know. I've been where you are. And she's like, how could you know? You don't understand. He's like, bitch, please.
Basically, I guess.
And then
Then they just go home.
Well, Bonnie's like, the boxes are empty, aren't they? The Doctor's like, bingo.
Yeah, and he has this line that they only realize that because now they're starting to think like him.
Yeah. And Kate's like, well, what are we going to do now? We know the boxes are empty. And he's like, you've said that the last 15 times. I have to imagine he attempted 14 times to get them to stand down, and Bonnie just like slammed her fist on the button. And the Doc's like, gotta try again. Erase their minds. Kind of seems like cheating now that I think about it.
Guess that's how he had all the time to perfect that speech.
He's just perfecting it every iteration.
The first one is just like, guys, like, you don't want to do this. Like, stop. Round 15 is this.
Round 1, Bonnie's just like, I don't need to listen to your speech. Pushes the button immediately, and the Doc's like, gonna have to do better than that. Like, come on, Doctor, you're off your game.
So, like I said, they all just go home. There's a scene with the Doctor and Clara and the TARDIS, and I want to mention this because I want to talk about it pretty much right now since we're at the end of the summary. But Clara, I forget exactly what it was. She makes a reference to like time, or the Doctor says like, "Oh, it was 30 minutes long." And Clara's like, "Couldn't have been more than 5 minutes or 30 seconds or whatever." He's like, says, "I'll be the judge of time."
Clara, when the Doctor thought Clara was dead, he's like, longest month of my life, and she's like, could have been more than 5 minutes, and the Doctor's like, I'll be the judge of time.
Yeah, that.
But also, you're skipping over the scene where it's revealed that Zygella's the other Osgood now. You're like skipping over that kind of critical scene here.
Yeah.
Because the Doctor offers Osgood a ride in the TARDIS. Like, he's like, you want to come with? And she's like, no, I got to protect the ceasefire still. And he's like, I got to know, are you human or Zygon? Well, he's been asking her for 2 episodes. She's like, I'm Osgood. And then another Osgood shows up, and the Doctor's like, what? And she's like, gotcha. He's like, what? And it's like, yeah, well, it wouldn't have been right to run around wearing Clara's face anymore, so I'm Osgood now. And the Doctor's like, Zygella, you tricky fool. And they decide to go get ice creams, plural.
Yeah.
I always thought the plural of ice cream was just ice cream.
Well, it's like ice cream is a count noun and also a non-count noun.
Maybe it's like mathematics and maths and math. Maybe it's just like an English thing.
That. This is actually one of the, or maybe it's not. But yeah, this is the thing that this is the whole like vinyls debacle. If you remember that from a couple months ago, I'm not even gonna name drop anyone involved. But yeah.
That whole thing was just a thing.
Anyway, I have a few topics I want to get into now, and I bet you do as well.
I've got 2, yeah.
Yeah, so you want to go ahead with one?
My first topic is another kind of hybrid thing going on in this episode, like pretty heavily with Osgood. I think the Doctor even mentions explicitly in the second episode, he's like, you're a hybrid between a human and a
they
Zygon.
Shove it in your face. They really make it clear. Wish they cut that line out, honestly, because it's
because in the
obvious.
first episode they like don't even explicitly say it at all. She just says, well, I'm a little bit human, a little bit Zygon, and leave it to you to fill in the blanks. I guess they're trying to make it a little more obvious that the whole hybrid thing is like the overarching plot of the season, especially since we've only got like 3 individual stories left in the season.
Yeah.
So again, another possible candidate for a hybrid. It's kind of interesting. The Doctor's like been allegedly running away from this prophecy his entire life. So Davros claimed, he's like, did you leave Davros to run away from the hybrid prophecy? And then just like all of a sudden, like within the span of like, I don't know, let's be really generous and say this season takes place over the course of like a year of the Doctor's life. Kind of seems really weird that like all these hybrids are just popping up right at the exact same time in his life. Must kind of like be really suspicious to the Doctor.
Why would you believe Davros though?
Why wouldn't you believe Davros?
Because he's a liar and a traitor.
Is he a traitor, though? I'd argue
Yeah.
he's the biggest
He's a
patriot
traitor
on
to-
this
to
show.
True. Wow. Yeah. Probably true. Jesus. Salute Davros.
Heil victory, Heil Davros. Didn't the Daleks literally say, like, Heil Davros in one of those episodes in the classic show when they decided to throw subtlety out the window? Like, the Daleks are Nazis, guys.
Yeah, it might have been in Revelation.
So that was my first one. Just wanted to make another note of this hybrid thing. And again, how interesting it is that, like, within the Doctor's life, just all these references just popping up, like, right now. Just right now. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll go. Yeah, I mean, one thing I really liked about this episode is that it brought, a good amount of horror back into Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Who actually often does horror type stuff and often doesn't succeed. But I think this episode is really good in that regard.
Next week's episode goes, like, even further.
Yeah, I think the preview for next week's episode makes it look really good.
Because, next week is... I think Mark Gatiss wrote next week, and he's like, I wanted to do like a found footage episode of Doctor Who, which is like, the Blair Witch Project was like the first big found footage kind of horror movie.
Yeah, like next week's looks really good, but I think this week also does a good job with some of the scary stuff.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty terrifying to realize that literally anyone could be a Zygon. Anybody could be a human. Although that's less terrifying. That actually leads into my second thing that I want to talk about, which is the interesting kind of mirroring between the first episode and the second episode, where in the first episode it's revealed that Clara, for her entire time on screen, basically, except for the first like 5 minutes of the episode, is a Zygon, and that everything she's been doing is because she's a Zygon. And in the second episode, we get the kind of reverse reveal that for all of the time Kate spends on screen in the second episode, she's actually a human and not a Zygon, even though you think she's a Zygon. It's kind of also cool because the first episode, because of the drop that Clara is a Zygon, like, it kind of reinforces your idea in the second episode that Kate's a Zygon. It's like, oh, well, Clara was a Zygon in the first episode, so Kate's probably a Zygon now. Like, last time we saw her, she was basically just alone with this other Zygon. She's probably a Zygon now. And then it's revealed that, nope, Kate survived, and she's gunning down Zygons.
Yeah, that's related to pretty much all the things I had left to talk about. And, well, I mean, first of all, let's just get this out of the way. Like, Clara gets to be a villain in this episode, which is always cool. You know, the hero's getting to switch sides and play the villain, like, you know, like the second Doctor did and some of the other, or like Tegan did even.
Mm-hmm. Crossing the aisle.
Yeah.
Like the first Doctor robot in the Dalek episode.
Yeah, I mean, so it's always cool, like Jenna Coleman getting to be the villain for the week, for the 2 weeks. But I mean, what you're talking about also plays into the whole like Zygon-human confusion thing that this episode is heavily doing, you know, with Osgood and all of that stuff. But also some of the information control stuff. This is done like in a not well thought out way, like most of Zygella's plan. But there is a point in the episode that we kind of skipped over because it's so minor, of like the Zygons are also starting like this meme campaign, or like they're creating viral videos, and they're trying to control information, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of what this episode in itself is doing, right? It's depending on what it shows you, you know, you think different things. You don't see Clara get turned into a Zygon, so you just automatically assume she's a human when really, you know, they're whatever, the same or something. So
yeah, there is an unnecessary scene where she's standing like in the room where we see what happens right after she asks if the boy was okay, and we see like the other Clara walk in. She's like, "Hello, Clara. I'm Bonnie." That was
I mean, I like that because, you know, when you don't see that scene, you think one thing, and when after you do it, you think something else. So, I mean, just playing again into what the Zygons are kind of doing, which is like what you see and what you believe in the relationship between those two.
Yeah, but I think that scene comes after. I think that scene comes after Bonnie reveals that she's the Zygon and Clara's in the pod. So you've already figured it out.
Yeah, you've already figured it out, but again, it's what's the word? I guess like just showing you the scene again.
Recontextualizing.
Yeah, exactly. Recontextualizing things. So it's not so much about like the content. Maybe it is about the context.
I guess.
But then that also Actually, this doesn't have to do with what I want to talk about now, but I want to talk about the doctor's speech now at the end. Because this was actually really cool in a way, I guess, and that he's heavily like critiquing like justice in a way, or like justice in the sense of like non-personal justice, or like an applied justice that's for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, and I think that's really heavily, dropped, or maybe even like ham-fisted in a way where he's like, now you're starting to see like my point of view, right? Because he argues against essentially like justice in the sense of like, I don't know what you would call them, laws, or like things that you have to follow laid out, in a sense that like applies to everyone, and instead it argues for like a personal approach, and his is like forgiveness and not non-retaliation.
I mean, in many ways, it seems like he's advocating democracy over dictatorship, is how I kind of read it. Because he confronts Zygon and he's like, what are you going to do with the people like you? Like, what are you going to do with the people who want to overthrow your dictatorial regime, basically? And she's like, we'll win. And he's like, yeah, but you can't win forever. Like, if you just keep doing that, people aren't going to like it. And to me, it reads like he's saying, maybe you should, like, work together. Maybe you should have some sort of, like, electoral system, or, like, at least a democratic system in some sort.
Well, I mean, also going back to, like, the whole thing of the season just doing everything from last season better, this is, like, what do you do with soldiers after the war?
Yeah.
Type thing. And the doctor also, like, but here's the thing, like, this isn't all, like, I don't see, like, this episode or myself as being totally on the doctor's, like, side here, right? Because he's also ignoring, like, the benefits of war, and instead filtering this through his own personal, viewpoint, which is what he advocates, right? Instead of this, like, and I guess you could even call it that, instead of, like, a democratic thing, that's for everyone or that applies to everyone, he's saying, like, no, we need personal, like, we need to follow our own personal values, and those should be like ones of forgiveness and nonviolence and whatever, because those are filtered through him. And at the end, he's like, why you realize the box is empty? Because you're starting to think like me. Ha Maybe they're the hybrids. Now they're partially the doctor. And then that's even at the end too, where like the thing with the confusion of time. The doctor says, "I'll be the judge of time." Right? There's no time is something that applies to everything, or like, just looking at the clock, or applies to everyone. But the doctor says, like, no, I'll be the judge of how long it was.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the realizing the box is empty, I think that's actually a direct response to the question, like, what are you going to do with people like you? And I think it's Bonnie thinking, like, well, how would I, like, what would be the perfect way to dissuade or avoid a situation like this if I was in control? And be like, and the solution is the boxes are empty and it's all just a ruse, and we just actually have to sit down and talk. And that's like how she comes to that realization, is how she's like, well, what would I do if I won? Like, actually sitting down and thinking about it instead of just winging it like her entire plans.
That's actually information control as well. Man, I just realized that. The boxes.
The boxes being empty.
Yeah. Memes.
I don't know. I think it's a clever ruse, actually. 2 boxes, 2 buttons, and 50-50 shot, but then, well, 2 buttons each. 50-50 shot, and then the boxes actually do nothing.
The boxes should have just been like those fidget boxes with like the levers and the buttons.
In many ways,
weren't fully funded when this episode came out. What was I thinking?
I don't know. In many ways, the doctor's acting as the moment in this episode, because in the Day of the Doctor, the moment's like whole purpose is like, I don't want you to use me. Like, I'm going to show you everything possible, everything you need to see to not have to use me to wipe out Gallifrey and the Daleks. And in this episode, the Doctor's kind of doing the same thing. The box obviously is empty in this case, but it's very, very obviously styled to look pretty much exactly like the moment.
Yeah.
The carving
is...
Yeah,
there's Gallifreyan carving.
The carving is very, very similar. And the Doctor's like playing the role of the moment here, going like, I'm going to tell you everything you need to hear to not push that button right now. And the Doctor even references the moment afterwards where Bonnie's talking with the Doctor, and he says, I was here once, except I had a box with only 1 button, and I was so sure I was right when I was going to push that button. Bonnie's like, why didn't you? And like, Clara Oswald got in my head. I'm like, wow.
It's a nice line. Yeah, yeah. It's a very interesting scene. Yeah,
There's definitely
and
a lot to unpack.
yeah, and I would caution against like viewing the Doctor as righteous in this scene.
I think there's a difference between being righteous and being right.
Sure.
Maybe he's self-aggrandizing.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to get into it.
Well, the other thing I want to mention is that it's demonstrating how the Time War is still playing into Doctor Who 9 seasons later.
Let it go, Moffat. Yeah, 9 seasons later. I actually like that. It's still around.
I like it, but I also
So
like how
mean.
it's not like beating you over the head with it with like mopey Ninth Doctor every episode being like, I killed everyone.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Can't believe we did that. I can't believe you've done this. Anyway, so on the topic of references.
Is that a new meme?
That's an old meme. You've never seen that video where this guy just gets like slapped by his roommate and he just goes, I can't believe you've done this.
No, what is that from?
That's just the whole video. The guy gets slapped by his roommate and he just goes, I can't believe you've done this.
No, it's not from like a movie or anything.
No. It's just a guy. Just a regular old guy.
You know what the new like
I'm sure you
hottest
can just-
meme
I'm
is?
sure you
The
can just
Area
Google it.
51 thing.
That's not even like hot anymore.
It still is.
Still
I
like
don't
how they
understand that. Was it like people trying to storm Area 51?
someone made a
Like, what-
Facebook page. It was like, Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us.
It's true. Like, what if like 200 million people just showed up at Area 51?
Yeah, but 200 million people won't show up.
I know, but like, what if?
They'll just
And
gun
then
them
I've
all
seen-
down.
but I've
The
seen,
U.S.
like-
Army released a literal, unironic statement saying, if you try to storm Area 51... No, it was, because they're like, if you try to storm Area 51, we're armed and we're allowed to shoot on sight, basically.
Can't stop 6 billion people. But I saw like, it was big because I even saw like real graffiti for it. Of like actually spray painted on the wall graffiti of like Area 51 stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that the Facebook event was like for September, so they gave so much advance notice, like,
Yeah, sure,
element
there's
of
been, like, a
surprise
week
is
now.
gone.
Week from now.
But anyway.
So man, that's the first rule of like event planning. Always tell people like a week before.
And only a week before. Anyway, on the topic of references this episode,
Oh boy.
Osgood's dressed like the brig. There's a picture of the first Doctor in the unit safe house. The safe is hidden behind a picture
Yeah.
of the first
I
Doctor.
noticed that.
Harry Sullivan is mentioned twice in these episodes. He's the one who developed the anti-Zygon gas.
Nice.
So there's a reference. Not only that, there's like a double reference to that because the Doctor calls Harry Sullivan an imbecile in the second
Wow,
episode.
Nice. So here's the thing. Harry Sullivan is still the most overlooked and
Underrated?
no, not underrated. Overlooked and
Underappreciated.
undercover companion. Like you don't notice him or you don't think about him because I didn't even notice those references. And I was on the lookout for references. I got like some of the other ones, like the outfits and the first Doctor painting and stuff.
Yeah, because Kate Stewart mentions a quote naval surgeon unquote developed this gas in the quote 70s or 80s
Wow.
unquote, and then in the second episode she just straight up calls it Sullivan's gas, and then 3 scenes later the Doctor calls it the imbecile's gas. So there you go. Harry Sullivan is an imbecile.
Making his mark on the show still.
There's a Meyer helmet in the Black Archive, like right behind the Doctor during his speech. Kate's 5 rounds rapid reference, the reference to the moment.
That one was a little, I don't know, I don't like the 5 rounds rapid in this.
It was a little ham-fisted.
Yeah.
Osgood wearing the 7th Doctor jumper as well as the scarf. And then the Doctor saying, I made it up from the initials. Which is pretty much exactly what Susan said when she
Yeah.
explained what the TARDIS was. Although
Yeah,
he says it stands for
remember-
totally awesome and radical driving in space, which I like way better.
Remember, Susan came up with the acronym.
And yeah, I guess all of Gallifrey just adopted it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. Sonic shades count for this episode. There were quite a few.
There was 3.
I had undoing chains and activating the memory device.
And then also unlocking a van, which is apparently setting 137. I rated a car key. It's you need it every day, basically, you know. And in this episode, he basically needed it for everything he used it for. Actually, unlocking the chains, He needed it. Getting into that van so he could get away from the Zygons who were just like casually closing in on him. Needed it then. Maybe didn't necessarily need the memory erasers, but I think he needed it to preserve the ceasefire. So it's one of those things that you always carry on you and has a lot of use. And multifaceted.
Should just be like legs. Like you always need them for like most things.
Wasn't that useful? Because they were like, that's the thing about it, is that there were alternate ways he could have gone about all these things, right? He could have smashed in the window of the van, or he could have like picked the lock on the chains. The memory erasers, he could have gone to like the control room and done it, right? But in the moment, the easiest and quickest way he could do it was using the shades. And it wasn't like forced in there.
Kind of like Bonnie, there are other ways he could have gone about it.
Yeah, but unlike Bonnie...
Well, the moral of the story at the end of the day, like this actually all fits, is like you could have just like not done any of this. Or it could have been different.
You
like,
could have just
could
like
have been
not.
different.
The doctor's speech should have just been like, you could just like not do this.
That's what I think his first one was, and they weren't convinced until he started yelling.
Oh boy. So on the quotes, I have a couple of ones that I liked. In the beginning, I don't know how many you have, but I have 4.
Yeah, just read all of yours. We don't intersplice the quotes between us.
In the beginning, in the video, Osgood says something like, any race is capable of the best, and any race is capable of the worst, which I think is a prescient statement, but also the Daleks. So Kate, an exchange between the Kate and the Doctor. I just said the Kate, so I guess she's a companion now.
Heck yeah.
You left us with an impossible situation. The Doctor's saying, I know, it's called peace. That's a pretty clever one, I think. During the Doctor's speech, I think my favorite line is, you're not superior to the people who are cruel to you. You're just a whole new kind of cruel. And then the final one is the Doctor saying, you know what thinking is? It's just a fancy word for changing your mind.
Yeah, pretty good ones there. I just had the one the Doctor says at the end, I'll be the judge of time.
Harry Sullivan's an imbecile. Imbecile? Imbecile. How did the Doctor say?
What story was that in? The Ark in Space?
I think so.
I don't remember.
It was the 4th Doctor going, Harry Sullivan is an imbecile.
Yeah.
Or was it the Sontaran stratagem? Stratagem. The Sontaran
like
experiment.
Ago, yeah. Or was it the Time Warrior?
No, the Time Warrior was the 3rd Doctor and Sarah Jane in the castle. I remember that one.
Yeah.
That was like Sarah Jane's first story, I think.
Oh, yeah, it was.
I have nothing for the meme flow analog.
No, neither do I. Probably should just cut that segment. But we promised to do it for a full season.
We didn't promise the audience, just ourselves, though. We never promised it on recording.
Which is why
we could just cut it.
Should be
we should read, actually, JB's email now that I remembered it.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so we have an email from JB that actually we meant to read last week, but we actually genuinely forgot, even though I think we actually mentioned the email in the episode. But email from JB, subject line, ditch the new format, double exclamation point in all caps. I really like how non-structured the podcast is up until this point, and I think you should continue to keep the show as loose as possible because it's what makes your podcast unique from all the others. Why point out the memes when letting them happen naturally during the review is funnier?
I agree with that completely, actually.
I mean, I agree.
Now that we're a couple episodes deep in this.
I agree with that.
The meme part, at least.
Yeah. I don't think we...
There's not really memes if we force them.
Yeah, and I don't think the other thing is that we said we were just going to stop mentioning them in the episode.
No, yeah.
Because, I mean, like last week, we came up with the incompetent guard ones on the spot.
Yeah.
In the middle of the episode. The other thing is I don't think the structure is designed to take away from the spontaneity of all of it. I know someone on Twitter, and I'm forgetting who it was now, but also mentioned, like...
Boz Warrington,
I think it was Boz. Said... don't lose the random tangents you like to fall into. And I don't think the purpose of this format was ever to remove the tangents. I think it was just more so that we planned out the actual points we wanted to make.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're still letting the tangents happen. We just have other planned content that we want to talk about.
Yeah, we just actually put together our thoughts before coming into the podcast.
Right.
But the tangents, I think, still happen. I think this week and the last week and the previous episode demonstrate that the tangents are still there.
Yeah.
The tangents are still there. And I think it's nice to be able to keep track of just like, I think it's nice to force ourselves to like look for quotes that we like in the episode as well, because I think that also makes us look for things to actually talk about in the episode instead of just being a straight summary of the episode.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest, from at least my point of view, benefit of this new format is like actually making me pay attention to the episodes way more than I used to. Honestly.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Writing the summary just like forces me to actually like pay attention to the episode and keep track of what's going on.
Yeah. As is obvious, it still doesn't help, at least on my part. I still kind of forget what happens sometimes.
Just got to consult your summary more during the episode. And then we have a second paragraph here, which is completely unrelated. Be glad you didn't have me on for the Series 9 opening two-parter, which I lovingly refer to as Diarrhea of the Daleks. I won't go into every single problem I had in this two-parter. Only the biggest issue I have is Moffat changing the nature of the Daleks. The whole idea that it's the hardware of the Daleks' travel machine that makes the mutant inside evil just shows that Moffat doesn't understand the very nature of the Daleks at all. It was never the hardware. The mutants were programmed on a genetic level to have no sense of mercy or pity. As the Fourth Doctor said in Genesis, it wasn't the travel machines that had to be stopped, it was the mutants inside the machines. We've also seen mutants outside the Dalek shell attacking people in both Resurrection and Remembrance, and we've heard mutants killing humans on countless Big Finish audios. The whole idea that not all Daleks actually want to exterminate you, but they're stuck in the machine being forced to exterminate you is really horrifying. It's a concept that would have been really worth exploring, but once again, Moffat rewrites Doctor history in his own image just so he can give his audience, quote, the feels, unquote, when the Doctor almost kills Clara JB. I have a couple counterpoints to this, namely the episode Dalek, actually, which is a Russell T era episode, which shows a Dalek that didn't want to kill people when it got outside of its shell, and the Doctor was actually like the bad guy in that episode, because the Dalek like opens its shell and is like, I just want to see the sun one more time, and the Doctor's like, you're evil no matter what, I want to kill you. And like the whole point of that episode was that no, the Daleks aren't necessarily the evil ones every single week. So
yeah, I don't know if I so much took it as like, yeah, all the Daleks are being controlled by the Dalek suit, so much as like, even if there were a Dalek that wanted to try and break out of this like cycle of violence or whatever, like they couldn't, there's safeguards in place or whatever, but hey, I don't know.
Yeah, I took it more as the shell was just a vehicle, a means through which the Daleks channel their hatred.
Yeah, this also, I think, kind of touches back on Genesis of the Daleks. I think it would make sense for Davros to, like, yeah, genetically modify them, but then also, like, hey, put these, like, I don't know, safeguards in place on the suit, because Davros designed the Dalek suit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wonder if Davros's own wheelchair thing, like, has any of these.
Presumably not, because the Doctor rides around in the wheelchair and nothing happens to him.
Presumably not, but...
Also, the other thing is that I don't think Missy ever explicitly states there's like just the hardware that's making them evil. I think what she actually says is that the Daleks channel their hatred through the gun, and like the Daleks' innate hatred is like reloading the gun. Like, pretty sure she explicitly says that, which is actually in line with the Daleks themselves being the ones who...
What's actually in line with this episode too, in the Doctor's whole big speech at the end. Like, you know, hatred makes war go round.
It does, though.
Makes the world go round.
It does. So that's in line with...
What I took out of this speech is more war. We need more
wars.
War.
More cowbell. More warbell.
Oh, God.
Anyway, thanks for reaching out, though, JB. Yeah, always good to hear from you.
Prove us wrong if you still think we're wrong.
Always good to hear from you. Looking forward to having you on again in the show, in the future. In the show, on the show. On the show, in the future.
On the podcast. Really weird that people call... I'm not against it. I do it myself, but really weird that people call podcasts shows.
They are, though.
What are you really showing? Your logo?
Yeah. Okay. There's a show aspect.
I always... You know, when I listen to podcasts, I watch them, too. I just watch the time bar. I watch the logo. I don't
there are video podcasts.
Yeah, there are. There are.
I don't know.
I don't really
I'm going to stick to calling it a show.
Yeah, same. It's just so much easier.
All right, okay, I guess we came to a good consensus. Anyway, if there's anyone else out there who'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on the doctor's great speech. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter, TYD Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, and next time we're gonna be watching Sleep No More. But until then, the end.